They say the truth will set you free, but it broke me first. I didn't lose my mind when I found out. I just stood there, staring at the test results in my hand, the DNA report that told me, with sterile certainty, that the 2 kids I'd raised weren't mine. That's not the kind of pain that makes you scream. It's the kind that leaves you in silence, cold, methodical silence. I didn't say a word to anyone, not even her. I just started planning. It started off like a joke. A novelty. One of those ancestry DNA kits you see in ads, get to know where you're from, connect with long-lost relatives. My daughter, Emma, had gotten me one for Father's Day. Thought it'd be fun, she said with that sweet smile. I didn't know it'd end up cracking open the foundations of my life. I didn't even open it right away. Sat on the kitchen counter for weeks. My wife, Melissa, kept nagging me about it. Just swab the damn thing already, she laughed one evening, pouring us wine. So I did. 2 weeks later, my results came in. I expected Scandinavian blood, maybe some Irish. What I didn't expect was the flag, paternal relationship not detected. It was buried in the subtext of the family match section. Emma and Josh, my kids, had also taken the test in the past. I hadn't known that until I saw their names, flagged with that ugly, sterile phrase. Paternal relationship not detected. I reread it 5, 6 times. My hands went cold. My legs felt like iron. I sat there, in the silence of our home office, staring at my screen while Melissa laughed at some reality show 2 rooms over. I could hear her, carefree, oblivious. It was like watching someone laugh next to a ticking bomb. I didn't confront her. Not right away. That wasn't how I was raised. I was raised by a military father who taught me to control my temper the way you'd keep a gun on safety. First, assess the situation. Then, make your move. No panic. No noise. So I did what I knew how to do. I went quiet. The next morning, while she slept, I took the results to a lawyer, Evan Richter, a man who looked like he wrestled tigers in court and then smoked a cigar on their corpses. "You sure you want to go down this road?" he asked, his tone calm but heavy. I nodded. "Good," he said. "Then we do this right." Evan's team started digging. Background checks. Surveillance. Financials. We didn't just want proof. We wanted leverage. Quiet, thorough, devastating leverage. 2 weeks into the investigation, Evan called. "I found something. You're going to want to sit down." I didn't. I stood there in the parking lot outside my consulting firm while he told me. The biological father. My best friend. Scott. We'd grown up together. Played high school football, went fishing every summer, stood by each other's side as best man at both our weddings. He held my newborn son before I did. Taught Emma how to ride a bike. Called my wife family. I don't remember driving home that night. I only remember sitting in the dark driveway, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles cracked. I didn't go inside. I just sat there, listening to the ticking of the engine cooling, thinking about every moment, every Christmas, every school play, every "I love you, Dad," and wondering how much of it was built on a lie. When I finally walked in, Melissa was sitting on the couch, sipping red wine, watching some drama where betrayal was just plot seasoning. She looked up and smiled. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked. At the woman I'd built a life with. The mother of the children I now knew were never mine. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." And I was. Tired of lies. Tired of being the only one playing fair in a game where the rules had changed long ago. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I had a plan. End of part 1. Part 2, The Mask Slips, coming next. Let me know when you're ready for the next part, and I'll keep the story rolling, step by step, all the way to the reckoning. I kept up the act. That's the part nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't explode your life in a single moment. No, it seeps in like poison. Silent. Invisible. But once you taste it, you can't untaste it. I started watching Melissa closely, the way a soldier watches an enemy disguised in friendly colors. I took note of every lie she told, even the little ones. A dinner with her co-workers that never made it to her credit card statements. That yoga retreat weekend where she came back with a fresh tan line and a hotel shampoo bottle in her suitcase. The nervous way she smiled when I asked casual questions. The way she suddenly flinched when I touched her shoulder, like she wasn't sure who I was anymore. It was subtle at first. But her mask, God, it started slipping in ways she didn't even notice. She laughed less. Talked more in vague sentences. Her phone, which used to sit on the kitchen counter charging overnight, now followed her into the bathroom. She'd started sleeping with it under her pillow. I didn't say a word. I didn't let on. That was the hardest part. I still kissed her goodnight. Still made her coffee in the mornings. Still smiled when she kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're too good to me." Maybe that's the thing about betrayal. When you finally see it for what it is, you start playing your own game. And in my case, I played it better. Evan, my lawyer, had hired a private investigator, discreet, seasoned, and worth every dollar. His name was Paul. Former military. Quiet type. Sharp eyes. A week into surveillance, Paul handed me a folder. Inside were photos, grainy, black and white, but clear enough. Melissa and Scott. Together. At a hotel near the lake house. Hugging. Kissing. Him brushing her hair back from her face like it was some movie scene. My stomach turned. The betrayal stung, yes, but seeing him. The man who stood beside me at my wedding. That burned hotter than I ever thought anger could. I closed the folder. "You okay?" Paul asked. I nodded, jaw clenched. "Just keep tracking them." Understood. I walked out of that meeting and drove straight to a spot only I knew, an overlook out past the edge of town where the road turns to gravel and the sky feels bigger than your thoughts. I parked the truck, stepped out, and just let the wind hit me. I needed to feel small. Because the decisions I was about to make were big. Life-altering. Permanent. That night, I sat alone at the dining table, Melissa upstairs already in bed. I opened a notebook and started writing, dates, names, incidents. I built a timeline. Not just of the affair. But of my life. How many years had I been the fool? How many years had my house echoed with the laughter of kids that weren't mine? How many years had I looked at a man I called brother and missed the knife in his hand? And then it happened. The mask slipped completely. Melissa came home one night smelling like his cologne, cheap, musky, something he used back in college. She slipped off her heels, kissed me, and said she was exhausted from a budget meeting. I said nothing. Just nodded. She went upstairs, showered, and left her phone on the kitchen counter by accident. Unlocked. You learn a lot in 5 minutes. Photos. Messages. Voice notes. All of it. I downloaded everything. Sent it to Evan. Sent it to myself. Then I put the phone back exactly where she left it. No confrontation. No scene. Just preparation. That weekend, we hosted a barbecue. Scott showed up with a bottle of bourbon and the same smug smile he'd always worn, only now I knew what it meant. He laughed with the kids, tossed a football in the yard, even called me brother again like the word still meant something. I grilled. I drank. I smiled. And I thought, you have no idea what's coming, do you? Because revenge, real revenge, isn't rage. It's patience. It's restraint. It's watching the people who betrayed you laugh over beers in your backyard while you quietly pull the pin on the grenade and smile. There's a kind of calm that settles over you when the worst has already happened. That's where I was. Numb, but alert. Like a man at the edge of a battlefield, waiting for the first shot. Only I wasn't waiting, I was planning. Every move, every document, every whisper of evidence collected and filed like ammunition. Evan, my lawyer, called it legal warfare. This isn't about emotion anymore, he said as he laid the file on his desk. This is about position. Timing. Leverage. Inside the file were pages of texts between Melissa and Scott. Photos. Voice notes. Bank statements that showed a pattern of unexplained withdrawals, dinners labeled as business expenses on her joint credit card, at places Scott frequented. Hotel invoices. Even a shared burner phone line registered to a shell name, Melissa's middle name, misspelled by one letter. This, Evan said, tapping the file, is your nuke. But don't drop it yet. We need to get you everything first, house, custody, assets. I don't want to ruin her, I said, surprising even myself. Evan just gave me a look. Yes, you do. Or you wouldn't be here. But we'll let the court do that for you. He was right, of course. I didn't want revenge out of rage. I wanted balance. Consequences. Poetic justice. Step 1 was financial. Melissa didn't know I'd frozen the line of credit we shared. She didn't know I'd opened a private account and rerouted my income there. Didn't know I was moving our joint savings into a trust under my name, one created before we were married, before there were kids, back when I still had the foresight to keep a few things separate, just in case. She didn't know I'd already met with a forensic accountant. Didn't know I'd installed a camera in my home office, pointed at the drawer where I kept our marriage license, my will, the kids' birth certificates. Didn't know I had already amended mine. She also didn't know that I had requested paternity testing, official ones, notarized and court admissible. Evan had instructed me to go through legal channels this time. The ancestry kit was a spark. But this would be the match that lit the fire. Step 2 was emotional. I stopped engaging. Melissa noticed. Asked if I was okay. I told her I was just tired from work. She upped her affection. Cooked more. Wore perfume again. Played the role of wife. It was almost impressive, like watching an actress try to win back the crowd after the script had leaked. Scott, meanwhile, played it cool. He didn't text me. Didn't call. I think he suspected something. Maybe he caught a change in my tone, a silence in my smile. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe, like most cowards, he was just too arrogant to believe the walls could ever close in. But they were. By the end of the 3rd week, I had everything I needed. The court documents were ready. The DNA results, certified and final, showed a 0% probability that I was the biological father of either child. That night, I stood at the doorway of Emma's room and watched her sleep. You know what they don't tell you? Even when the blood isn't yours, the love doesn't go away. It just hurts in a different key. A lower one. I wasn't sure what would happen to us, not yet. But I wasn't going to disappear. They were innocent. And they deserved a father, even if fate had dealt me this hand. Still, the betrayal couldn't go unanswered. So I told Evan, I'm ready. He smiled, leaned back in his chair, and said, then let's serve the papers. I still remember the look on her face when the papers hit the table. We were sitting across from each other in our kitchen. Saturday morning. Quiet. Sunlight spilled across the oak floors. The smell of coffee lingered in the air, untouched. She was in her robe, barefoot, scrolling through her phone like it was any other day. And then the doorbell rang. Evan had advised that the process server be someone professional, clean, courteous, efficient. Not the cliché guy in a windbreaker with a smirk. This wasn't about making a scene. Melissa opened the door. Melissa Carter. Yes. You've been served. She stood there for a moment, confused. Then turned to me with a stack of documents in her hands. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. Let her put the pieces together. What is this? She asked, flipping through the papers. Divorce? Her voice cracked. What is this, Josh? What the hell is going on? I stood, slow and calm, like a man who'd rehearsed this moment in his head 100 times. I know, Melissa. She blinked. Know what? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw anything. I just walked to the sink, poured myself a glass of water, and said. I know the kids aren't mine. I know about Scott. I know everything. Silence. Her knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the edge of the counter. That's not, she started, but the lie died halfway out of her mouth. I watched it happen. That moment when someone realizes their entire narrative just shattered. That all their secret rehearsals, all their careful excuses, all their backup stories, meant nothing. Because the truth was finally louder. We didn't talk much that day. She tried, of course, there were tears, pleas, fragments of explanations. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. It was complicated. I let her talk, but I didn't answer. What was there left to say? By Monday morning, Evan had filed for full custody, based not just on the DNA results but also on Melissa's documented emotional manipulation, infidelity, and the fact that I had been the consistent, present father since birth. Our legal team framed the case not around biology, but around responsibility. Stability. The court didn't care about betrayal. But they cared about the kids. And in a twist of legal irony, Melissa's affair with my best friend, and the subsequent deception, played directly into my hands. Scott found out next. We served him too. Evan made sure the packet arrived at his workplace, neatly bound, sealed in a manila envelope marked, confidential. Inside were notarized copies of the DNA results, a cease and desist order to avoid contact with my family, and a letter stating that he may be named in a paternity suit if Melissa attempted to claim child support. He called me. Twice. I didn't pick up. He sent me a text. Josh. Please. We need to talk. I didn't mean for any of this. I blocked his number. The fallout came fast after that. Melissa tried damage control. She called her parents. They were furious. Her mother called me in tears. Said she didn't raise her daughter to be like this. I didn't tell her that sometimes the roots run deeper than you think. Word got out. Small town. People talk. Friends stopped calling her back. Scott's wife, yeah, he was married too, kicked him out. Filed her own suit. The dominoes fell hard, and fast. I stayed quiet through it all. Didn't make a scene. Didn't take to social media. I didn't need to. Truth does its own damage, when it's weaponized right. 3 weeks after the papers were served, Melissa showed up at my door. She looked tired. Smaller, somehow. I just want to talk, she said. No lawyers. I stepped out onto the porch and shut the door behind me. I know I hurt you, she whispered. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want to understand. Why now? After all this time. I studied her face. The same face I once thought I'd grow old beside. The face that had said, I do, with tears in her eyes and a lie already growing inside her. Because truth has a shelf life, I said. And yours expired. She wiped her cheek. I loved you, Josh. I still do. No, Melissa, I said softly. You loved what I gave you. And you gambled it for scraps. Then I turned, walked inside, and locked the door. Courtrooms are colder than they look on TV. No drama, no shouting. Just paperwork, protocol, and a quiet tension thick enough to choke on. Melissa sat 2 rows ahead of me, her hair done, her expression calm, maybe too calm. Her lawyer, young and slick, whispered something to her. She nodded, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. She was scared. Good. The judge, a composed, stern woman named Karen Holt, called the hearing to order. Evan, my lawyer, was already standing, calm as ever. Mr. Carter, the judge began, you're requesting full custody of 2 minors despite not being their biological parent? Yes, Your Honor, I said. Explain. I didn't flinch. I've raised them since birth. I've been their father in every way except blood. I provide for them. I show up for them. They call me Dad. Biology doesn't erase that. Melissa's lawyer objected. Your Honor, this is emotional manipulation. My client is their mother. She acknowledges mistakes, but Mr. Carter is not the legal or biological father. The judge raised a hand. I'll decide what carries weight here, counselor. Then she looked at Melissa. Mrs. Carter, were you aware Mr. Carter believed himself to be the father? Melissa shifted. Yes. Did you ever correct him? She hesitated. No. The courtroom went still. We didn't finish that day. The judge ordered further evaluations, character references, psychologist reports, school records. All of which told one story: I was the one raising these kids. Melissa was the one pretending. The psychologist's report hit hardest. Both kids said I was the only dad they'd ever known. Emma had written, in her own words, even if he's not my real dad, he's my real dad. That changed everything. At the final hearing, Judge Holt looked straight at Melissa. This deception lasted over a decade. Mr. Carter was the children's father in every way but genetics. For their stability and well-being, primary custody is awarded to Mr. Carter. Mrs. Carter will receive supervised visitation, pending review. Melissa's face crumbled. She whispered something to her lawyer, but the damage was done. Outside, Evan clapped me on the back. You got what matters. I nodded. Yeah. And what comes next? They both earned it. Melissa didn't beg. Didn't scream. She packed quietly and left. Her note was short, 1 sentence, written in her careful handwriting. I'm sorry. I know I broke everything. I didn't reply. Some apologies are just confessions dressed in hope. She moved into a small apartment across town, far from the schools, far from the life she used to have. Our kids, Emma and Josh, never asked why she didn't come home. They already knew. Kids feel these things long before we give them words. Her calls came twice a week. Supervised. Short. Emma barely spoke. Josh stared at the floor. Melissa cried. I didn't interfere. Let her sit in the silence she made. Scott was gone. His wife filed for divorce after we sent her the DNA results and texts. Last I heard, he was sleeping in a motel, his business suffering, his friends vanishing one by one. I didn't need revenge. The truth handled that for me. At home, I made changes. Emma wanted lavender walls. Josh got a drum kit. I framed a photo of the 3 of us from our hiking trip last fall, just the kids and me, smiling for real. The wedding photos? Gone. The house didn't feel like a grave anymore. It felt like something alive, slowly healing. Weeks passed. Then came a letter. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. Josh. I've lost more than I thought possible. You were right to walk away. The kids won't talk to me. I don't blame them. You were always the better parent. I just couldn't admit it until it was too late. I won't contact you again. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and moved on. One Friday evening, I stood by the grill flipping burgers. Emma rehearsed her school play on the deck. Josh was in the garage, hammering out rhythms on his drums. The sun hung low, casting gold over the backyard. I sipped my beer and looked at my life, worn, dented, but still standing. No lies. No masks. Just my kids. My peace. My house. They weren't mine by blood. They were mine by love. And I chose them. Every single day. Victory doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it's just the sound of a quiet morning, the hum of a coffee maker, the pitter-patter of your kid's socks on hardwood, and no fear in your chest. That's what life became. Peace. Not the absence of pain. But the absence of lies. 6 months had passed since the ruling. The court hadn't reversed a thing. Melissa's visitation was still supervised, though she rarely used it. Josh didn't seem to mind. Emma had her own way of coping, journaling, art, moments of silence I knew not to interrupt. I got them both into therapy. Not to fix them. But to make sure they never carried their mother's betrayal like it was their own fault. Because guilt's tricky like that, it skips over the guilty and clings to the innocent. As for me, I stayed busy. Consulting gigs picked up again. I joined a local gym, started sleeping better. Even bought a dog, Luther, a massive black Labrador who liked to sit by the window like a retired security guard. And people started coming back around. Neighbors who'd gone quiet suddenly wanted to talk again. Old friends I hadn't heard from in months reached out, some out of support, others out of curiosity. I chose my company carefully. I'd learned the hard way how easily a friend becomes a snake in your grass. Melissa? I haven't seen her in person since the hearing. I hear things. That she switched jobs. That she's alone. That she tried dating but never got past the first few dinners. I don't wish her harm. But I don't wish her well either. I just wish her far. One Sunday afternoon, I took Emma and Josh to the park. Emma climbed the rocks barefoot, daring the world to keep up. Josh rode his bike in circles, calling out for me to watch. And I did. I really watched. It hit me then, not the pain, not the betrayal, but something stronger. Gratitude. Not for what happened. But for surviving it. For staying the course. For not letting betrayal make me bitter. For not letting them break me. Because they tried. They wore my trust like a mask. Used my love like a shield. Lied to my face while calling me family. And still, here I was. Whole. Later that night, as I tucked Josh in, he looked up at me and said, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." I smiled. "Why's that?" He shrugged. "Because you didn't quit." That hit harder than anything else ever could have. That's my story. Not about cheating. Not even about revenge. It's about choice. Choosing truth when it costs you everything. Choosing strength when you have none left. Choosing to be the man you said you'd be, long after the people around you stopped being who they claimed to be. They say blood doesn't lie. Maybe not. But neither do the ones who fight for what's right, even when it's not in their blood.